Outlaw Sports is brought to you by Molson Canadian, made from Canada, and Rocky Mountain Barbecue, Alberta barbecue cuisine at its best. Around the league we go. Ian Busby of the Calgary Sun joins us, and I was just saying, if Saskatchewan could get Pilsner on sale for 50% off, life would be great. I mean, they got Ken Miller back, Andy Fantu's back. The Riders have won 2 in a row and defeated Winnipeg in both of the Labor Day games. Things don't get any better than that.
Well, maybe a Grey Cup win, but at a playoff berth, maybe later in the year. That's what they're thinking.
That's what they know.
That's what they're leading to, right? Ken Miller's going to take them back to the promised land, and this time they're going to finish it off, right?
That's a cult. It's a cult. Ken Miller can have them drink the Kool-Aid right now, and they'd all do it. Green Kool-Aid, everyone drink up.
How much did they hate Greg Marshall and Doug Barry for that?
Jesus.
Completely to change over as soon as they got rid of those guys. Ken Miller comes back in, and it's a completely different team. Very surprising, obviously. We didn't predict that. I'd like to say we should have, but...
I wanted to talk to you about this Craig Butler, the safety, comes up with 2 interceptions. And first of all, before I go any further, Buck Pierce, I'm going to tip my hat to that guy. He has taken 2 of the biggest hits I've ever seen in the CFL, and he gets up and walks away. Whether or not he's okay remains to be seen, because I think that one was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. When you get hit like that, holy smokes. I mean,
yeah,
that was wild.
And TSN had a lot of fun with it, showing, oh, here's the Jamal Johnson hit where he got
which was bad.
Head taken off, and here's the Craig Butler hit when he gets his head taken off, and he gets up both times. Buck Pierce has always been a tough guy. He plays through a lot of stuff. If he starts this week, it'll be his 11th consecutive start for the Bombers this year.
Yeah.
That is his longest streak in the CFL. Think about that. That's not very
No,
good,
you're right. I mean, the injury bug just been...
how long can he go out there and take the pounding and take the pounding? Now, he got right up from that hit and threw a nice pass downfield and a nice sequence of events for the Bombers there, but then he was rattled the rest of the game.
Sure.
Interception.
5 interceptions.
Yeah, and that's just... Maybe they can chalk it up to a bad game, but that's 2 bad games in a row. Swaggerville has sort of gone like this, which is the way that they were cocky at the start of the year. Maybe they needed to get the knees taken out of them right now.
Sure.
And get them going into Montreal this week. Wow.
That's a tough...
That could be a 3-game losing streak, and now you're starting to question, well, are they going to be hosting a playoff game or not?
Yeah.
It looked like at 7-1, it looked like for sure they were going to host a playoff game this year. That finish off Canada in Stadium, thank God. But that might not be the case right now.
Yeah, and some injuries in their linebacking core certainly going to help them too, or hurt them rather.
Joe Lomondon could be seriously injured and could be out for a while. He's been having a really good year. I thought he was not a starter-worthy linebacker up until this season, so he was having a great year, and that's a tough loss.
Him and Brown and Hefney drives me nuts because I think he's the only guy that can out-talk Dwight Anderson in the league.
He tries.
But he's a hell of a player. But I think when I watched him, I just thought there was too much swagger, so maybe it's brought down. I want to talk about Montreal because they got their ass kicked by Hamilton, then they did the same thing. So those people that were ready to write Montreal off don't quite yet.
Right. Hamilton hasn't won in Montreal since 2008, and you consider they play there almost twice a year.
Yep.
Every other year they're playing there twice a year, and they haven't won there in almost a decade. That's something they got to get over. They have one more game, Hamilton and Montreal. That's going to decide the season series. We were writing them off a little bit after a couple losses.
Sure.
But because they lost 4 times in 6 games, and that never happens under Trestman. But you can see when they get home, they get comfortable. Anthony Calvillo, and if you watched a lot of the pregame speeches that they showed, they really, not him personally, but what he was saying was Trestman was telling them they really got to concentrate on this game. They treated it like a playoff game. They had to win it, which isn't really something you would think for them, being a midseason game against Hamilton at home. But they actually said, okay, 2 losses in a row. It was a head shake time for them, and they turned around, and of course, they do what they do. It's they just offensive efficiency, and Anthony Calvillo spreads the ball out, 4 touchdowns to 4 different receivers, and just has a field day.
And for people that are keeping score at home, Kevin Glenn now 1 game below 500 in his career. He's going to end at 500.
He'll probably get back to
yeah,
500
he'll be
this
when
week,
he ends. He'll be a 500 career quarterback. Stamps take on the BC Lions. BC have been rejuvenated. I think these 1-7 campaigns for Wally, back to back. I'm not predicting that they're going to have the same success, but they look to be a different team, albeit they were playing Toronto, than they were at the start of the year.
The difference with the Lions this last few games is their defense hasn't allowed a touchdown in 3 games. Now, of course, they stopped the Toronto Argonauts twice, and then it was the BC or the Edmonton Eskimos before that at home, which was just a complete aberration game as far as I'm concerned. But the way that team has really turned things around after an 0-5 start, with mostly the same personnel. Now, they added Arlen Bruce, they added Tad Cornegay, a veteran. You know, those guys, it's funny because Lions never used to do that type of stuff. They used to just build from within. It's a different method.
Desperate times.
But they're built around a core now of Travis Lulay, G. Simon, Akeem Foster, Sean Gore. These guys are going to be good. They got to figure out their running back situation, as we said last week. But they can't run Tim Brown 24 times a game with returns and running the ball and receiving out of the backfield. They can't do that, which is what they did the first game in Toronto. But I see that team as very dangerous for the Stamps. Obviously, that's the team that came in there twice last year and beat them.
Yep.
Both times, the big story of that game was the return game. So Tim Brown is going to have to be a focus for them.
And I think mathematically, the Toronto Argos have been eliminated from next year's playoffs.
Now, here's a question for you. Does Jim Barker survive?
I was going to ask you that. You know what?
Swoon? I mean, because last year he wins Coach of the Year, and they were doing it a little bit with smoke and mirrors, defense and special teams. They were grinding it out, getting wins. And now it's just, it all fell apart at the same time, and that it was a bad time to have the cameras on them 24/7 because it just exposed all the flaws and all the mistakes they were making. And then Cleo Lemon becomes the fall guy. Now, they're very excited about Stephen Giles, and from what I saw of that game, yeah, he had a rusty start. He's shaking off rust, and he can move around, and he can make some things happen, but he's also a guy that can have some explosively bad plays, as well as some explosively good plays. Now, you like to take the upside without the downside, but we saw that with Henry Burris. You have to live through those type of things for the first few years of a guy starting. Will Barker still be there when this team actually becomes a contender? I don't know. He's put all the onus on himself because he's the spokesperson for that team. He's the GM, he's the head coach, he's the guy bringing in the talent, and they haven't brought in a whole lot of talent on offense right now.
I'll tell you what, if anyone can charm their way into another year, it's Jim Barker.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't here because he ran into a young guy that wanted power and control and his own people in it. But
this is his first time as a second-year head coach in the same system. Remember, in '99, Toronto, they locked him out when they changed ownership there. 2003 with the Stamps, well, the ownership changed and they turfed him. Oh wait, that was he got turfed before that. When Ron Rook
took over.
When Ron Rook took over and made Matt Dunnigan the head man.
Christmas Day.
Yeah.
Christmas Eve.
Yeah, it was good timing, right? Nice present. The thing is, he's got to figure out how to go year to year and with the same group because he's never done it before.
Yeah.
And I mentioned that to him at the start of the year, and he said, "Well, thanks for telling me that I'm the second-year head coach, first time in his career." He said he was comfortable enough that he won head coach of the year, so he could buy a place in Toronto. Bought himself a year. Well, after that, he even said he knows he has to win that year and to keep going, and it's going to be tough. I think next year at this time, he might not be the head coach, but I think next year at the start of the season, he starts the season as head coach. They have to give him another chance to get out of this mess.
Can utility be a poster? Can utility keep you up at night, dreaming? Can utility put thoughts in your head? Depends on what you mean by utility. Introducing the new Porsche Cayenne and Cayenne S Hybrid. Lighter, more agile, more efficient. More Porsche than ever.